Good. So this is the problem we are going to solve in today's class. And first, let's walk through the problem or statement first. And then we now see, explain and try to like come up with solution to solve this problem. So what they don't want us to do, the first line 2 to line 3 says we should create a variable called numbers, which is an array that contains number 1 to through 10. And we know that variable called numbers is going to be 1. The number is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up until 10, right?
Yes.
So, and in this code, they want us to pass these numbers to an array. So we should create an array that contains the number 1 through 10. So I'm going to create an array. At least we know how to create an array, which is we write this what do you call this bracket again? This bracket. And also in that array, and in that array we write 1 to 10 inside. And this is how we write something in an array, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, and we call our array main array. So we just give it a variable, an array name. We call it main array. And also the next line says we should write a function called.
Sorry, I thought they say we should create a variable called numbers. So I was thinking they mean we should name it numbers.
Yeah, we can do that.
Variable name.
So we can do that like our num 1 equals to 1, num 2 equals to 2, and then now pass all these num variable number to this. Do you get it now?
No.
I don't know if I answer your question.
Yes.
So, but it's still the same thing.
Okay.
So now let's continue. And so the next line says we should write a function called display holds number, which iterate over the numbers array, right? It's going to be 2, and this should be 1. So, and they want us to iterate through this number, array number. And now we know what iterate means, right? Which is more or less asking us to loop through this number. And and it says iterate over the number array and create a new array of the number that contains the odd number. So they want us to loop through this array, and they want us to create a new array that contains what? Odd numbers out of this main array, right? So first thing we can ask ourselves is, what is odd numbers? Or what is, or what are odd number? And I don't know if anyone wants to help us, or we should Google search.
They are numbers that are not divisible by 2.
Exactly. So they are numbers that are not divisible by 2. Not that they are not divisible by 2. They are divisible by 2. But the only problem is they have remainders, right?
Yes. Yeah.
They have remainders. If we divide them by, if they have remainders, if we divide them by 2, right? So at least we know what we are supposed to do. So for example, now if we divide this by 2, what is going to give us? We have remainder of 0.1 divided by 5 is going to be 0. And we have remainder of 0.5, right? Of 0.5, which means this number is an odd number. 2 divided by 2, do we have any remainder? No, which means this is not an odd number. 3 divided by 2 is going to be 1, and we have remainder of what? 0.5 again. So which means this is going to be what? An odd number. This also is not going to be an odd number. This is going to be an odd number. This is not going to be an odd number. This will be an odd number. Not an odd number, an odd number, not an odd number. So we are expecting 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, which is what they told us here now. So now let's break this thing down. So the first thing is they want us to do what? You should write a function called this. So now what we are trying to do now is we are trying to write something called our pseudocode, or they call it, first thing is to write what? To write pseudocode. And what this means is, or we should write, simply trying to tell us we should write our what? Algorithm. And what is it trying to tell us is algorithm. Yeah, algorithm. What is this trying to tell us is we should write like a step-by-step of what we are going to do, like a step-by-step approach of what we are going to do or how we are going to solve this problem. So, and the best way to go about it is to break down the problem we are trying to solve into like smaller components. So we know that, what is this first part telling us? We already did the first part of this question, which says what? We should create a variable number, which is an array that contains what? The number 1 to 10. We already did that here, right? So we can break this thing down now further. So this is the first step, right? Then the second step says we should write a function called what? Display odd numbers. This is going to be the second step, right? This is going to be the second step. So we want to write a function called display odd numbers. So inside of that function, now they want us to do what? To iterate over, you can see they said, write a function called this, which iterates. So which means this function is going to do what? It's going to iterate over the numbers array, right? So we can copy this. This is going to be another step. So this is going to be inside this function now. We want to do this inside this function, because it is this function that is going to iterate over that array numbers array, right? That's why we are putting this inside of this. So then the next step says what? Now it says and create a new array of that number that contains the odd number. So we can break this thing down first. Yeah, create a new array that contains what? So this is going to be like, this could be this, this can be inside of it also. Then the last part is going to be, then they told us like, this is what the solution should look like. And so this last part, we can break it down further. It says that we should create a new array of the numbers that contains odd number. So which means we need to figure out a way to do what? Figure out a way to get odd numbers, right? So if you look at this process we just done now, this should give us what? A very good way of what? Of getting our job done. If you look at this line 23 to line 29 compared to line 2 to 6, you realize like this line, with this line 23 to 26, 29, even yourself, you can start working on this code, right? And come up with a solution compared to what? Line 2 to line 6. Which one do you think is more simpler? Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Hi.
So which one do you think is more simpler to like approach now? This is more like the same thing they want us to do here. They are saying the same thing. So the only thing is, when we break one down to like smaller component that we can easily understand, right? For example, now, if I ask you like, how do we write a function? We want to write a function called display all. So how do we write this? What is the syntax of writing a function?
We write the function, then we console the function. We console a function.
Well, for now, we are not trying to console first. They ask us to write a function code. So how do we write a function code? It's more like we're trying to write a variable and give it a name, give it a value.
Okay.
So how do we write a function, call this stuff? What is the syntax of writing a function? You get the first part right. What is going to follow? Remember, we always have a keyword, then the name of that variable or the name of that function or the name of And they already gave us a name for that function.
Yeah. So followed by the variable name.
Exactly. It's going to follow by the function name. It's followed by variable name, but in this instance, it's a function, so we call it function name. Then remember we open a we have then what is going to be the next thing?
The bracket.
The bracket, exactly. And what is going to be the next thing?
What do you call?
You can check your sorry.
I'm thinking main array.
Sorry?
I said I'm thinking main array. I don't know.
No, I didn't get your point.
I said I'm thinking main array.
Yeah, we are still coming back to main array first.
Oh, okay.
So, but we are trying to do what is on line 23 now. You remember line 23 say we should write a function called display hot.
Okay.
So, and how do we write a function? What is the skeleton or the skeleton or the skeleton of writing a function? Remember what is our function name? The name we want to call that function. This bracket, then what? The function body. Right?
Yeah.
So this is the skeleton or skeleton or the syntax of writing a function. And if you check our previous note, sorry?
Yes, the curly bracket up and down.
Yeah, exactly. So, and a function sometimes returns, but it's always good to return something, but yeah, for now, maybe we shouldn't stress ourselves about return or not return. So, but let's move forward now. Remember I said all these things, they go inside the function, right? Because this is what they want the function to do. So we can easily just move. We can easily move this inside of that function, right? So far, do you understand this so far now? Or you want me to go back and explain?
I understand. I don't know about the other lady.
Oh, do you understand as well, Chidibere?
I think so. But these other curved brackets, what are they for?
So this one.
No, not that one. The other one.
This,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this one is also part of writing a function. You know, for everything we do, we always have a syntax for it, right?
Okay.
Assuming it's just an ordinary variable. Ordinary variable. So it's just going to be let or const or var variable name, right?
Okay.
Equals to the value, right? These are how we write a variable in JavaScript. And how do we write a function in JavaScript? Though there are many more ways to write a function, but these are just like the basic or one of the first approach of writing a function in JavaScript. We should have two more ways of writing a function. So, but now we shouldn't stress ourselves much about other ways. At least this is a function and it's still working. So the way we write the function is write the function keyword, then the name we want to call it, then it's going to take this. And the reason why we have this is, let's say, for example, we want to pass some input to this function, like want to pass some value to this function. So we can pass those values in between these brackets. Do you get now? Value 2.
Yes, I understand.
So value 1. So this is more or less just a way of passing values to that function. But this is the general syntax of writing a function. So though a return keywords also go inside, but don't let us worry ourselves about a return at this point, so we don't complicate things. So now let's proceed now. So the next line says what?
Oh, are we going to put the return sometime later?
Yeah, we can talk about it once we are done with this solution. So we understand how return works and the difference between console and return. Then I think that's a very good. The difference between return and console alone is, I think I've heard it before in an interview.
Console.
That they've asked it before in an interview. It's a very good interview question. So the next thing now is the question asks us to iterate over the numbers array. So now in this instance, we know we are going to pass an array to this function, right? because we need an array to work on. So now we can just easily pass that array to this. So, but because these are our classes very short, function alone is like a topic, it's like a very broad topic we treat. And I don't want to start mentioning some jargons or some terms here, so I don't complicate things. But the only thing I can explain here is so the value we pass to this function when we are writing this function, you know, remember I said we can pass the values I want to pass, it goes in here, right? And in our case, it's going to be what? Our main array, right? Because this is the array we want to work on. But the interesting part is you don't have to call it main array. So you can give it any name. You can just call it an array. So, and this is what this is telling us is like this, an array is more like a placeholder here. It's more like a placeholder that a value, I'm going to give you a value later on, but just hold on to this placeholder first so that you know that I'm going to pass a value to you. Do you understand it now?
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to mention terms or make it complicated, but the code is the value you pass to that function when you're writing the function, they call that value, maybe I should put it here, so that at least you know you've heard of it. So the value, okay, let me put it this way. So parameter or parameters is the value they pass to a function when it is being defined or defined. That's a parameter. Hold on to this parameter now. I'm coming back to this parameter. There's one more we need to know. Maybe I should write it down. So the second one is called arguments or arguments. So let's hold on this for now. So do you understand what parameter is now? It's just the value, it's the placeholder. Is the placeholder or the value you pass to a function when you define a function, right? That's what parameter is. That's the name, technical name they call it. So now let's move on now. We know that this function is going to receive a number. It's going to receive an array. It's going to receive an input, which is an array. So now we've done that now. So now they would now want us to iterate over this array that we are going to pass to this function. And they want us to iterate over that array. So how do we iterate over an array? At least we've done loop before. And we've talked about, I think we talked about for loop, we talked about while loop, though we didn't treat do while. And for objects, because this is about array. So you can now see how we are now combining everything we've learned from our previous classes now together. So how do we iterate over an array? And the interesting part is you don't have to know everything by, you can also Google search and check. So, but if you know, you can tell us, how do you iterate over an array?
We loop through it.
Okay, so how do we write the loop? We have different type of loop. Which one should we use?
For loop.
Okay.
But I don't know why it should be for loop.
Yeah, it's fine. It could be any loop. It could be even some be inbuilt loop method or iteration method like map, filter, blah blah blah. So yeah, you are right. You can use for. You can use any loop. So how do we write for loop?
To remember, we
do you want me to Google search it?
We do something like let's I
so let me help you. We have this bracket also. Then let I, yes,
equal to,
sorry,
equal to,
equal to.
Okay, if we are starting from the first one, so we use 0 because
Then
go and sit down.
Then what comes next?
Yeah, we have then we now say, is it a bracket or be less or we say, okay, if this I is less than,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a bracket before, yes, like this. If this I is less than that, than this,
What
than
what are
our
we trying to
variable name,
what are we trying to look
that
through?
no, we are looping through this array.
Yeah, so what is it going to
So
be less
if
than?
less than 1,
Mm,
abi?
let me give
Or
you another hint to figure it out. You remember, this is we are trying to look through an array, right?
yes.
So, and how do we know we are going to get to the end of that array? Because that is what we want to do. You remember, this I is more like the index of where we want to start, right?
Index.
Right?
Yes,
That is the index of where we want to
yes.
start. And how do we know
Mm.
where we are going to end in that array? Because this is the array we are trying to look through.
Is the length.
Exactly. And how do we write it?
How do you write what?
So you said the way we know we get to the end of that array is what? The dot length, right?
Length. The
The
length
length of that
the
array. Then how do we
Yes.
write how to check the length of an array?
Okay, the variable name dot
Mhm.
length. The variable name dot length.
Dot
So,
length, exactly.
yeah, mm.
Right? Because this is what we want to check. We want to make sure until we get to the end of this array, then that loop should stop. Then
Yes.
what next?
I think the next thing we should do is to have you put a bracket, that curly bracket,
Yeah, but I don't want
but
us
that's
to.
not the
Yeah,
major
before
thing.
the bracket, there's still something we need to do. Remember, first thing is this is where we are going to start, right?
Yes, we start with that one.
And we want to keep checking until we get to the end of this array. Then the last part is how do we increase or increment this? You know, this is going to be 0 at first, right?
Yeah.
And this is going to be 0. 0 less than the length of this array is true, right?
It's true.
But at the point, we want to
So,
have a way to keep increasing this index. So that it's going to start from the initial position to the end of it. So then this is the last part that is going to come here. They call it increment condition expression. Like, oh, sorry, counter expression, sorry.
counter.
Yeah. So how do we do the counter there?
Yeah, okay. You add I plus plus.
Exactly. So now
Because
the
you are
next thing is going to be, we open our for loop body. Like, what do you want to do inside this for loop? So, and if I'm right, I think, so on this part also, we can break this thing down, like I said, create a new array of number that contains the odd. So which means, remember they want us to create a new array, right?
Yes.
So, and to do this, to make this code run efficiently or effectively or whatever effectively, so it's going to be good. I don't know if we have the time to explain it, but let me just explain. So it's going to be good if we put that array outside of the for loop. So maybe I'm going to explain it when we are walking through this array or visually. So it has to do with, because we didn't talk about closure and what's the second part, scope. As we talk about closure and scope now, we'll have explained all those parts are a little bit getting advanced part of JavaScript, but a very good and interesting topic to know also. So, but maybe I can explain why if we keep going on. So it's going to be good to put this. Remember, they want us to create a new array, right? So it would be nice if we put it outside of this for loop. So we can just declare a new array and let's call it new array equals to what? We can set it to be an empty array because we don't know the value that is going to be in there, right? Because if you look at this part, they said we should create a new one. We should create a new array of the numbers that contains the odd number, which means we only want to pass the odd number to this array, right? So which means you can create a new empty array first. And so once we determine how to get an odd number, then we can now do what? Pass that odd number to the empty array.
Yes.
Do you get it now? So the next question now is, we know what an odd numbers are. Oh, I hope you are following as well, Chidibere. Hello. Hello? I want to take it as yes, right? Or maybe you are not on seat. So the next question is, we know, at least we understand what an odd numbers is, or what our odd numbers are. We know that there are numbers that are divisible, that are not divisible by 2, which means if we divide it by 2, they are going to give us a remainder. And one thing in JavaScript is, I don't know if we managed to talk over this, or maybe Shegun did. So we have different operators in JavaScript. What are operators? Plus, division. Okay, let me make it just as normal operator we have in math. Multiplication. Let me take this down. And division. And we have this. So I'm going to explain all 5 of them. We know this to be what? It's just the same addition in mathematics. We know this to be what? You can see my screen, right? Subtraction, exactly. And we know this to be what? Multiplication, exactly. Multiplication. And we know this to be what?
Division.
And we know, and this you might not know before. You might not know before. So, but this one is also division. It's
But
also
it's
division.
cancelled.
Sorry?
But it's cancelled. Cancel.
Mm-hmm.
There is
I
a
don't think I
line over
understand.
it, right?
Sorry?
There is a line over it, right?
Yeah, so it's like it is the percentage sign. Percentage symbol.
Oh, is that percentage?
Yeah,
Okay.
percentage symbol. It is a
Okay.
percentage symbol. So, and what it does is, it's a division operation, and we only use it to do what? We use to check, to divide a number to see if we are going to get a remainder. It is used for division and to check if there is a remainder in a division. So if you are trying to check if your division is going to have a remainder, so you have to use this percentage symbol. Do you get it now?
Okay.
But if you are only trying to do a normal division, you don't care, but if there is going to be the remainder, then you can use a normal division. So let's take, for example, let's try some stuff. So for now, I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to go to my Chrome now, or let me go to my, what is it called? Let me go to my terminal. The only thing is I can't remember how to access terminal here. That's the thing. Okay, so let me go to Chrome, and so let me inspect. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
And you can see I'm on Google Chrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now let's try all those stuffs out. Let's say we have, num1 equals to 20, right? Let's say num2 equals to 2, and let's say num3 equals to 3, right? So if we do num1 divided by num2, what are we supposed to get? 10, right?
10.
So if you do num2 divided by num3, what are we supposed to get?
Odd number.
It should be, sorry, it should be
percentage.
let's do num1, so it's going to be much easier for us to understand which. And you can see it's 6.666 thereabouts, right? So now if you do num1, now use that percentage symbol divided by what? Num2. You can see what we get. So remember when we did num1 divided by the normal division symbol? You remember this is more or less telling us 10.0000, right? 20 divided by 2, you know it's 10.0, right? I'm talking about this normal division.
Yeah.
It's 10.0, right? And
Yes.
if we do this, because the decimal there is 0, so it's not showing that 0 to us. And also, if you do 20 divided by 3, the decimal is coming out for us, right? And in this case, with this percentage symbol, it's going to return the remainder for us. And you know, in this part, it is 0, right? In the first part, 20 divided by 2, it is 10.0. So you can see it's returning the what? The remainder to us, the decimal part to us. Also, if we do norm 2 using that percentage symbol of norm 3 now, it should be norm 1. Why? 2. Why 2? So, but the point here is
because 10 divided by 3.
Did I
10
use 10?
divided by yeah, you use num 1.
Which is
Num 1
20.
by num
20
3.
divided by, oh, sorry. No, it should be 20 divided by 3. And that should give us so, but the point here is I don't know why it's 2 anyway. Maybe I haven't worked on this in a while, so I can't really remember. So, but the point here is
excuse me, I'm thinking it's writing the number that is remaining after the division.
Yes, so it's correct.
Yes,
it's correct, Dami.
It's correct, right?
Yeah, 20 by 3. 3 is an odd number now. So it's correct.
So okay, so the point here is if we do this, if you are getting 0, it means that number, this is going to this is telling us if we use this symbol, and if we get 0 to be the answer, that is telling us what? That number is not an odd number, it is an even number. That this num 1 is what? It is not an odd number. And if something is not an odd number, it's going to be what? An even number, right? So it's telling us this num 1 is what? Is an, I think I know. Yeah, I think I know why. I know why I'm not getting what I'm supposed to get. So let me do one more num. Let me say, let num 4 now equals to 5, right? And let me now do num 4 by num 2. Yes, exactly. So this is what I need. Sorry, don't mind me. Yeah, you guys, you are all right. And this is the part I need also. I think you're all right. So the reason I'm not so, I was a little bit confused back then was how. So the problem is, remember we said odd number, right? They are numbers that are not divisible by 2. And if you look at my num 2 is what?
Yeah, 2.
2, exactly. And if we divide this by 1, if you divide this by 2, if you get 0, it means that number is what? It's an even number, it is not an odd number. And if you divide it by 2, if it's not 0, you can see what we are getting back is 1, right? And if you divide 5 by 2, the remainder is what? 1, right? So you can see that's why we are getting 1 here. And if you do this symbol and you get 1, it means that number is what? Odd number. It is not an even number. Do you understand how this works now?
Yes.
So with this, we can now go back to our code, and we know that what we are trying to use is what? An odd number, right? So we can use this as the operator instead of what? Instead of this number division. Do you get why we are going to use this now? Do you agree with me that we are supposed to use this percentage symbol?
Yes, to me, okay. Yes, because it houses both even and odd number together.
Exactly. So now going back to our code now, and they call that percentage symbol, they call it I think they call it, some people call it maybe modulus or modular or modular, or some people just call it mode. If you mention mode, they know what you're talking about. So now going back here, let's try to now do this now. We know how do we divide something. First thing is going to be what? We know we want to divide each element in that array, right? Right? And how do we get each element at different position? That's the reason why we are doing the index. So we can just pass the index to it, right? So this is going to give us at each index as the more we keep incrementing this, index, right? And how do we do it? Then we use that modular or mode symbol and we do what? Divided by 2. So it means at each position, it's going to get each number for us at each position and divide it by 2 for us. And how do we get the output for the remainder? Which means you can easily create a new variable and call it what? Output. And when we are performing this operation, whatever we are getting as the output, we can store it inside this what? Inside this output, right? Do you understand what I'm trying to do at line 28? Hello?
Yeah, so whatever we get.
So we are storing it
into
inside of this output. You understand it, right? If you don't, just let me know. I can just go back and explain. Because if you don't understand this point,
the way we divided by 2.
okay, you want me to explain the way we divided by 2, right? So now take a look again. You remember at I is going to be 0 at first iteration, right?
Yes.
And if you pass I to this array, what is this going to happen? It's going to go to that index 0 and get the element or the value at index 0, right? Which is what? Which is going to be what? 1. And this is more or less like what we did back then in that terminal. We were just using this divisor. You remember that mode operator to check, to divide this number to see if it's going to give us a remainder, right? You remember this is what we did at that terminal, right? And instead of us, because this code wanted to run manually, to run automatic by itself. So on the next iteration, this I is going to increase. I is going to be 2, right? And it's going to be what? 2. And also this is going to do that mode. It's going to check if 2 divided by 2 it has remainder. And whatever the output of this is, it can only be either 0 or 1, right? So for the first one, the output is going to be what? 0, right? For the first one is going to be 1.
1 divided by 2.
And that remainder is now going to what? Get saved inside of this output. Okay, let me break it down like this. Let me declare a variable up here. I'm declaring a variable now. And in the next line, and now I'm going to do an array now divided by 2, right? Right? Do you understand this part now, or you still don't understand this part?
Is
Hello?
that a variable you are declaring or what?
No, which part you don't get now? Do you understand line 29?
Yes,
Or you don't understand?
This one you're highlighting.
Line 28, right? Do you understand this? Or you don't understand?
Yes.
Sorry?
Please explain. Can you explain?
What we are trying to do here is for each of the iteration, you remember this is an array, right? This is an array by itself. And remember how we index elements in an array? We just pass it a number that's good for that. Let's say we want to get the element at position 6 now. And it's going to be what? We're going to pass 5 to that array, right? So it's going to give us what? 6. No, sorry. We want to get the element at position 6. We have to pass 6 to it, sorry. And it's going to give us what? 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This should return 7 to us, right? Also, if you want to get element at position, or let's say index 5, and this is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is going to return to us what? 6, right? Do you get that now?
6.
So what we are trying to use that part is just to keep looping through to calling out each number at each element at this position I Because remember, this I is going to increase from 0 to the end of the array, right?
Yes.
And once we get that number out, we want to divide that number by 2 using that mode symbol, using that percentage symbol. Do you understand this part now?
Yeah.
So, and once we get that output out, we just don't want it to be sitting anywhere. We want to save it to the memory so that you can easily use it all over again. So that's the reason why we created that variable here. So we want to make sure it's saved to the memory so we can use it. Then whatever the output of this is, whatever the output of computing this is, we want to save it in the memory. That is what I just did there.
Okay.
Do you understand it now?
Okay.
So for me not to be writing this line 28 and line 30, I can easily just write it once. Write it once like this. They are still the same thing. Do you get it now? Hello?
Hi.
Sorry? Can we proceed? Do you understand it now?
Yes, go ahead.
Because the point is, if you don't understand this part, the next line, it's going to be hard to understand it. That's the reason why I'm taking my time to let you understand that this line. So if you ask me to go ahead, so the next thing is, to now check, though also we can write this thing in a single line anyway, but let's try to break it down again. So remember, we know this is going to give us a remainder, right? It's going to give us a remainder of either 0 or 1, 0 or 1, 0 or 1. And remember we said a odd number is when you divide something by 2 and there's a remainder. And we know the remainder we're expecting is going to be what? 1. So we can easily just check, like, if this output, which at each iteration is going to get the output of computing this, you can say if this output does not equals to what? 0. And we know that if it does not equals to 0, then it is what? It is an odd number. But if it equals to 0, then it is what? An even number.
An even number.
Right? You can easily do it this way. Like if the output equals to 1, then we know it's an odd number. So, but I'm going to use the other way around. Like if it does not equals to 0, then I know it's an odd number. So, and what do I want to do if this is an odd number? And remember what the question is asking us to do? The question asks us to do, if it is an odd number, the question asks us to do what? To send that value to this new array. On line, let's see, where do we, yeah, you see this line, right? It says, line 37 says, create a new array of the number that contains the odd number. So which means whenever we see an odd number, what do we want to do? We want to send it to the what? To the new array.
Yeah.
And I don't want to use the word. If I use the word, then you remember. So how do we save a number in an array? I remember Shegun talk about this.
Else.
Not with S yet.
Okay.
So there's a method, we have different methods anyway, but there's a specific one we can use to. There are several ways to do this, or to be honest. There are several ways to do it. It depends on whichever way you think is most convenient. You can also use the index to save it, but don't let us complicate things. So we can do a Google search and do how to save an element in an array in JavaScript. Yes. How to store an element in an array in JavaScript. Yeah. So how to push. You can check this out, and So it says mess up with basics. So as press the enter button or click the button, list array elements is changed, not append. So I would like to reset blah blah blah. All these ones are story. It says you can try this update snippet if okay. So maybe this is a little bit complicated than what we are looking for. So maybe we can also try to I think so. What should we do? Time is up anyway. We can try to finish this, right? Hello. So, but if you can wait, fine. But if you can't wait, this is going to be recorded and I'm going to share the link. So I don't want to hold anybody down. So let's see, how do we save variable to an array and get value in loop? So maybe you can change this save to another word. Pass an element to an array. So you can check this out. So I'll send how to send an element to an array. Let's see this. Let's see one of those. As I press then not this again. So how to pass an array as a function as we know, this is the one we are looking for. Let's see an array object, description, constructor, static. So but I don't want to waste our time. So
like, are you talking of, because I don't know the way you're asking. Is it like push?
Yeah, that's what you need. Thank you. That's what we need. Push.
Maybe
So,
the way you were saying it, that it's
yeah, so
push,
what we are trying to do is, you remember, we want to send
but
that
push
back to the
goes
array,
to the
right?
back. But
Sorry?
push goes to the
Yeah,
back.
exactly. You are right. So it's not going to be that array. The name of that array we want to push to, right?
Yeah.
Then dot push and whatever I want to push there, right? And what do you want to push there? They want us to push that number there, right? And how can we get that number? We just have to get that array with that index also. Because this is still the number we are dealing with, right?
Mm.
Do you understand that line, or you want me to explain again? I'm trying my best so you all can understand this code.
Yeah.
You understand it, right? At least you understand how push work. The number we want to push to the array, this is the number we want to push to the array, and this is the array we want to push to. Now do we get the number? We just have to get that array with current index of that number we want to push. I mean, if you remember at the first iteration, this is going to be 1. We are coming back there anyway. So can I proceed also, or you think you understand this? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Damn, I understand it.
Okay. So now we know if this is true, this is going to happen. But if this is not true, then nothing's going to happen, right? And so then you can see now we've done this now. And we've also done this. So the next part is going to be, how do we now print out that number? So that is going to lead me to return. That is going to lead me to explain the difference between return and console. So return is like also a keyword used in Java in most programming language, not only JavaScript, like almost every programming language. So and what does return do? Return, it's also like a keyword that goes with function. It goes with function only. And what do we use return to do? We use return to send we use return to send we use return to send an output from the function. I know this doesn't make sense. So what we use return is just to send something out of this function so that someone else can use it, so that another thing can use it. So for example, now let's say we compute this thing all over again. And once we know the answer we need, So we can use that return to send whatever. Remember, this is going to perform an operation, right? Whatever the output of performing this operation inside this function body. I don't explain scope and closure now. You understand these things very well. You understand function very well. So whenever we perform this operation inside this function, you know this is a function body, right? Only this function can see what is inside itself. Just think of it as normal human being. Nobody can know what is inside of you except you. Except only if doctors take you down, curse you down. That's the only way they can know what is inside of you. But in this instance, only this function can see what is inside itself, which is from line 24 to line 41. And if we want to give this, whatever is the output of computing this function to someone else to use it, so we can use return to send that output out so that other people can use it. Do you understand return now?
So we only use it in function.
Yeah, in function alone. And we use it to
So,
like
so
send
does
output.
it mean that in function,
Mhm.
does it mean in function we cannot use console?
So we can also use console, which I'm coming back to. I'm coming to console now. But the only way to get something out of the function is return. Like don't let me say the only way. But the best way to return an output out from a function so that other people can use it is you use return so that other teams can use it in your code. Is return. Do you get it now? And console, what console does is, though we have different console method, but in this instance, we are talking about console.log. We have different method on console. We have different type. This console.log, console.blah, blah, blah, console.blah, blah, blah. But in this instance, we are referring to console.log. And what does console.log does is, console.logs only help us to print something to the terminal or to the console. And what is a console? This is a console. So it's only going to help us to send, like, print a result to the terminal. That's what console.log does. Remember when we went to our Chrome the other time, this is also, you can see a console here, right?
Mhm.
We are pointing to. So whatever we are doing is only mean that we are playing around with the terminal. This is a console also. So console.log only help us to print something to the console. It can't do more than that. So which means if you are using console.log to get output out from your function, it's only going to print it to the console for you. It can't send it to someone else. You can't send it to another part of your code so that other people can use it. No, it's only going to print it to the console. But if you use function, it means function can pass it to a variable so that you can use it. Function can pass it to another thing so you can use it. You can pass it to another function. You can pass it to a variable. You can pass it to anything so that other stuff can use it in your code. Do you understand the difference between console and return now?
Yeah.
So
So what if we say that return prints the output to the terminal so that other people can use it? Is that correct?
No, return doesn't print to in what we are going to do, we are going to see it in terminal, but return doesn't print to the terminal. It's
so that others can use it.
No, it doesn't. Don't. I think the part you are missing up is because I said other people can use it, not other people in this
Yeah.
instance, because other part of your code can use it. Let me correct it that way, not other people. And if you remember, if you're writing a code, if you're writing like a software, people don't even have to see your output. Let's say, for example, now, let's say you go to, let's say you have a simple calculator on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's do it this way. Let's open calculator on Google Chrome. Yeah, so this is a calculator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I do 8 times 5.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it returns 40, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I also do times 2, by default you're supposed to multiply that 40 times 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see an answer here, right? You see answer is equals to 40 at first when I did the first part, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it means the output of doing 8 times 5 is store that thing in what? In the answer, right? A variable called answer. This is more like a variable also that's saving itself in the memory so that I can easily reuse it all over again.
Yeah.
So it saved the output of computing 8 times 5 in a variable called answer in the memory.
Mhm.
And now if I do that answer, because I can't type answer here, and because I easily just press times again, it knows that I'm referring to the answer. It now does answer that times what? Time new operand I'm using, which is 2. It's going to be 40 times 2, right? So, and what now relating this to function now? How this function work is, remember that multiplication is a function behind the word. Like they have a function that does multiplication behind this calculator. You know, my own is just to click something, right? So there's a function that does multiplication, there's a function that does division, there's a function attached to these. All these things are button. All this stuff you see, they are buttons. So there's a function that attached to all of them. Because these are multiplication is an operation, minus is an operation. Every operation in this instance, there is a function attached to them. Log is an operator, sorry, not operation. Division is an operator, times is an operator, minus is an operator. All these stuff that are operator in this place, there is a function attached to them, right? And if you will agree with me that this multiplication takes nothing less than 2 variables before you can perform a multiplication operation, right? Minus also takes nothing less than 2 inputs because it has to do with 2 variables, 2 values, because you can't only subtract one value from you can't use only one value. If you need to subtract something, it has to be subtract something from something, right?
Yeah.
So that's the function behind the wood doing all this operation. So if I press equals now, there's an operation behind it. There's a function behind it doing that operation for me. And the only way I'm getting that output out is because there's a return keyword that is trying to return that thing to us. Do you understand it now? So that other stuff can use it in my code, not so that like other people. Let's take the word other people out now. And that goes for anything you are doing on any software. Anything you are doing on software. Let's say if I do, what is my name? If I should press enter on my keyboard now, I just perform an operation there. And that thing is going to go look for what I'm looking for and give me back an output. And that output is what is the return that is doing all those work behind the wood. Do you get it now?
Mm-hmm.
And what console does here is console can't do all this stuff. Console can only do what? It can only do what? Log to console. Console.log. Do you get the difference between them now?
Console.log can only do what?
It can only log something, it can only print something to console.
Okay.
While return can return something out from that function so that other stuff or other function or other thing can use it.
Okay.
Do you understand it now?
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a very good interview question. Just note it down, just in case. So now I can proceed, right? Hello. Hello.
Hi.
I can proceed, right?
Yeah. For me, yes.
Okay. So, and Chidi, she's okay, you're still there, right? Yeah, I can also proceed, right? Chidi.
Yes,
Okay.
proceed.
So now in this question now boils down to us like, do we want to console to log or do we want to return this? So which one should we do? Remember, if you console to log, we are going to see it in the log in the console. But if we return, it's not going to show in the console to us. But there's a way we can still see it if we use return. So which one should we use? Hello. Should we use console.log or we should use return to get the output from the output out from this function?
Return.
Return. So now, what are we going to do now? So return, we write the return keyword. And what follows is what do we want to return? And remember what we want to return is what? Whatever that is inside of this array. Because we give it a name, so we can easily use this name to get that value out from the memory. Then we just put it there like this. Then it's going to return this array to us. Do you understand it now? So, and we want to return these only when we've performed all the iteration, that's when we want to return it. And that's the reason why I didn't put that return here. Because another thing I need to explain about return is your return also tells is, this is a function, right? Your return also tell your it also tell your code that anywhere you see return, like leave that place. So this is the point now. Remember, we have this function body, right? We have this function body. And how do we leave this function body? This code is going to enter this function body. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. So with this return keyword means whenever you run on this keyword return, you should leave, like immediately leave this function, go outside of this function body and go to the next line outside of this function body. So whenever this thing hits this return, it's going to return the output of this, and it's going to leave this function and go out to the line 45 and continue with that code. And what this happens is, in a lot of codes, you have a lot of functions. Like you see different codes, you see a lot of functions there. And how do you return outside of one is you just use return to get out of that function body. Return also helps us to break out of a function body. So let me just put it that way. So now that's the reason why I didn't put it here. And we are going to see that visually now. Let's try to walk through this code visually first and see what we are going to get before we run this code. So let's assume now this is our array, right? We pass this main array. So next line is going to be, now how do we get to run this code? We are not done with this. So how do we run this code now? So the next thing of how we run this code is we have to write our function name. We're going to write this our function name and pass that value we want to pass to it, which is going to be this. And remember when I was explaining something the other time? So I was explaining the difference between parameter and argument. I said parameter is the value we pass to our function when we define it. And argument, and I'm going to explain the part of argument. Argument is the value we pass to the function when we call the function. So this means now we want to call our function. Then remember we said this value here is like a placeholder, right? But it's telling this function like something is coming to you, just hold on to this, like I'm going to pass something to you. Now what do you want to pass to it is now going to be this, the real value we want to pass to it when we call this function. And how do we call this function? We call that name of that function and we pass a bracket to it. That's how we call a function. And because we are passing a value to that function, then we pass it, that's main value we want to pass to, which is the real value now, and which is main array. We pass it to this function. So if you run this code now, if we should run this code, so if you walk through this visually now, this is going to take this array. When this code is going to start from line 1, is going to come down. When it gets to line 23, it's not going to do anything. It's going to come down, walk through this. It's going to come down, and it's going to come down to line 47. When it gets to this line 47, because we call the function here, then it's going to go back and execute this function, and it's going to enter the function body now. And the first thing is, in the function body, we created a new array, empty array, and inside this we are trying to do a for loop. And that for loop is going to do this. First time is going to pass 0 because our high is 0. It's going to pass this 0 to this array. And this array 0 at this point is going to be 1. It's going to do 1 divided by 2. And we're using this, right? It's going to act like, if I divide 1 by 2, do we have a remainder? It's going to be, this is going to value to 1. This output is going to value to 1. And it's going to check does 1 equals to 0? Strictly equals to 0 is going to be no. Then it's not going to enter this function body. It's not going to enter this body. And this code is going to come here and it's going to go back to the loop again. It's going to increment this I to be 1. And it's going to come inside and it's going to check at what is at position 1. It's going to be 2. It's going to check is 2. No, I think I missed something there. Yeah, this in the first instance, sorry, I think I missed something. I mistake something. In the first instance, the output is 1, right? And it's going to check if we divide 1 by 2, do we have a remainder? It's going to be true, right? It's going to check, yes, does the output equals to 0? Sorry, I think there's I'm coming. I'm trying to get something here. Okay, this is going to be. Yeah, so but the point here is this does not equals to 0, right? This equals to 0. So can I hold on? Can I check something? If I do console.log, let me try something. So the point I was trying to make the other time is so this code is going to come at first. It's going to check, this is going to be 1 divided by 2. That is going to give us 1, right? If I'm right. Then this is going to come here and it's going to check, does 1 strictly equals to 0? And we said if this does not equals to 0, yeah, this should operate. And if you check, 1 does not equals to 0, right? Which means this is true. And if this is true, then it's going to come inside this body and it's going to do what? Go to that particular index, and at this first index, which is index 0, the array is, the element there is 1, and it's going to push 1 to this place. Then the second time I is going to increment. Now I is going to be 1. Then it's going to come here, it's going to change this I to 1, and it's going to go to that array, and at position 1 is 2, right? And it's going to check 2 divided by 2, and this is going to be 0, and this is going to check 2 does not equals to 0, right? And if this does not equals to, that's what we are checking, and this part is not going to run. Then the second part, the third part is going to increment again, increment this to 2, and it's going to go here, and the element at index 2 is what? 3. Also going to check this is 3, and this does not equals to 3, which means this is right? It's going to come here, and it's going to check, and this is going to evaluate to 3, and it's going to push 3 to this array. So like that, till we get to the last part. And the last part is going to be of index. I is going to be 9. And it's going to check, what is at index 9, which is 10. Does 10 is going to divide 10 by 2. Do you have any remainder? And this is going to be 0 here. And 0 output does not equals to 0, which it does equals to 0. And this is not going to evaluate. And if you run this code like we did, we are supposed to get 13579. So, and when that is done, if you come back here, so I'm trying to, when we run this thing, whatever the output is with the return is now going to, because I want to see it on the terminal, that's why I've attached this. Whatever you are getting from that function, that's the reason why I attached to this console.log. And if you run this, this should give us what? This thing will start again. I think there's a mistake somewhere. Let me save again. Yeah, so you can see in our terminal now we have 13579. Do you have any question? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
I don't have it. Sorry, I don't have any question. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll go back and watch the videos and I'll follow better because I'm a little bit distracted.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, no problem.
Sorry.
And if you do have any question, just let us know.
Okay.
So we are way back, like way ahead of time. So I'm going to stop the recording now.